I'm David Cano with Film on TV Network's MMA Now, and we're here on location in Denver, Colorado at Coors Field, and I'm joined with the one and only Walt Weiss. How you doing, sir?
How's it going? Doing well.
So right now you're the manager of the Colorado Rockies, but I knew you as a kid with the Oakland A's. How were those days?
Oh, fun times, fun times. You know, for me as a young player breaking into the major leagues with that club, I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better. I feel like we're one of the best clubs in all of baseball back then. We had a nice little run through the late 80s, early 90s. You know, we laid some eggs in the World Series. You know, we only won one of them. We went to 3 straight, but what a great way to break into the league.
Now, that was a different day, different era in baseball. You were there then and now. Do you think it is a different era? I mean, being behind the scenes and a manager now?
It definitely is different. Back then, we went through that tainted era of the steroid era, or whatever you want to call it, where the offensive numbers got crazy and out of whack. But still, I mean, it doesn't take away from the fact that there were some great players during that era, regardless. So, it's kind of, there's some normalcy that's come back to the game, and it's kind of reverted back to the way it was probably in the late 80s. But still, I wouldn't trade it for anything playing during that era.
Now, I've heard that you're a fan of MMA, mixed martial arts, and also a black belt. Is that true?
Well, yeah, I trained when I was younger in the traditional arts, and Taekwondo, and then I got into MMA probably about 15, 20 years ago when it first started, when the Gracies came over and were doing their thing. So, since I was into martial arts, it kind of evolved into the MMA. Still train some. I'm an old guy now, so I got to take it easy. But in the off season, still train.
So you do still train. Is it just strictly Taekwondo, or is there other arts?
No, more mixed martial arts. A lot of jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and that type of training. I think it's a great workout, and plus I've been in the martial arts for a long time, so it's just part of my lifestyle now. So I whenever I get an opportunity to train, I continue to train.
I would put my money on you against any of these young players out here today. What do you say?
Yeah, you know what? I'm getting a little older, so I gotta be careful. But I think that'd be safe money.
Well, let's talk a little bit of UFC. UFC MMA is on the rise. Jon Jones is fighting next week. He was supposed to fight Daniel Cormier. He's out. What do you think about Jon Jones, and do you have a prediction for next week's fight against Ovince St. Preux?
I tell you what, I never bet against Jon Jones. That guy's a beast. There's so many good fighters now. They're so athletic. It's hard to predict the fight game now because anybody can beat anybody, as we've seen here lately. But I tell you what, Jon Jones, he's as good as it gets. I hope St. Pierre fights again. George St. Pierre is one of my favorite. But those two guys, for me, are a perfect illustration of how athletic the fighters have become.
So who is your favorite fighter in the MMA?
I would say St. Pierre. Matter of fact, last spring in spring training, I got George to come in and speak to our club. And it was a great day. He was outstanding. He was very transparent and was a great speaker. He really captured their attention for about an hour and a half that day. He stood up in front of our club and talked about his life experiences and kind of his mental makeup as he approaches a fight. And it was a great day. So yeah, I'm a GSP fan for life.
Now, thinking back to your days playing baseball and now, can you name one player that played in your day that would have been a great MMA fighter, or maybe a champion in one of the era of today?
The players during my era? Oh man, I'd hate to see Bo Jackson in the octagon. He'd be. I played against Bo quite a bit in the late '80s, early '90s, and he was just a physical specimen. So if he had MMA skills, he'd be a handful.
And actually, Herschel Walker got into MMA when he was 48 and actually had a few fights and did really well. Now, today's era, what player would you put money on if they weren't playing a professional baseball player? Who would be a UFC champion today?
Oh, it's tough, man. I mean, we got a lot of good athletes in this sport too. You never know what's inside here with an athlete. But I tell you what, even on our club alone, you take a guy like Carlos Gonzalez, who was so physically gifted and so strong and quick. I mean, if he trained in MMA, I'm sure he'd be elite in that sport too.
Now, just winding down this interview. In baseball, it's a 162 game season. It's a long season. It's grueling. You've trained mixed martial arts. What are the differences? Like, what is one harder than the other, or what are those differences?
Well, in baseball, the challenges are mostly mental. To do anything and perform at the elite level every single day, virtually every single day, for 7 or 8 months, it's very difficult to do. It takes a certain level of focus, and I think that's where there's a nice crossover between MMA and, say, baseball, because of the focus, the discipline, to compete or train at a very high level every day, like mixed martial artists do when they're training. They may not be competing every day, but they have to train at a very high level every day. For us, it's that competition every day, and you have to have fine-tuned focus to be at your best. So I think there is a crossover as far as the mentality, and that's one of the things that St. Pierre talked about when he addressed our club. It was very interesting.
Last question: the UFC is really cleaning up steroids, and because there was a bit of tainting as well. Where do you think the sport goes? Do you think it'll completely leave the game? Steroids, baseball cleaned it up. What do you think is going to happen with MMA?
I think it all comes down to how serious they are about their drug testing. You can clean it up completely if you want to. I think we've done that in baseball. You got to have really tough tests. You got to have really strict testing, and I think MMA is heading that way. I think they have to, because all the other sports are. And fighters don't want to compete against guys that are cheating, So to have a level playing field, they got to implement a very strict testing program, and I think that's what they'll do.
Well, Weiss, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you well this season.
Yeah, thank you very much. A pleasure.